Hello and welcome to Custom Gamer. My name is Daz and this is the show where we talk about level design while playing cool maps. So, on the 6th of July last year, 2013, I released version 6.0 of Cornered, and I've been meaning to do a video about it for ages and I kept on putting it off, so I finally decided to go back and finish it. The main thing I'm going to be talking about in this video is all the visual reworks I did on the map, as that was the major focus of the release, just a huge visual overhaul of the level. I felt a lot of it was lacking. I felt the lighting was very plain and needed sprucing up. A lot of the map was just bathed in complete darkness, which I didn't really like the look of. And there's a lot of almost temporary brushwork which was still in the level, which I really wasn't a fan of. So I went back and touched up all these different things. So let's go and have a look at what I did. So there are lots of new changes in the map. I'm going to talk about each one as we kind of come across them in this walkthrough. There are a lot of visual upgrades here that I'm going to talk about. So here is a screenshot of the old version of the map. As you can see, it's very, very dark. Now you've got some nice red lights off in the background coming from the silo. I really like that, but the foreground is very, very dark. There's no real lighting here, and there's nothing to draw the player into this corner. So I actually added a ladder in the corner here that the players can climb up, and a bright blue kind of halogen lamp in the corner, which really pops out of the environment, as you can see here. So this is version 6.0 that you're seeing now. Another upgrade is I've actually replaced all the curbs from brushes into actual models, which should have been done in the original release, but for some reason I just didn't do that. There's also a lot more props and stuff added all around the place here to really break up the silhouettes of the brushes. I think it looks so much better as a result. One thing I really like about the ladder in the corner here is that the shadows on the wall behind it really pop it out from the environment so players can see it a lot easier. Just decreasing the light map scale to get that nice defined shadow really helped with that. All the interior spaces of the map also got a large detail upgrade. This room it's mainly all above the player, so things like the vents up in the ceiling, lots of props and things up there, just to make it look more interesting. It was basically a giant box up there before, not really very interesting at all. Now as we come down here, I'm going to freeze frame again and go back to an earlier version of the map, because this area got a fairly significant upgrade. So here's the original one. It doesn't look too bad, I actually quite like this, but you can see there's not a lot of colour variation, it's a little bit dull, lots of grey in this shot. So as we go into the new version of the map, we've got some added visual detail, things like railings on the side of the road here. There's a lot more things like curbs and other brush models which help again kind of redefine the silhouettes of the buildings a bit. And the most major addition is the parking sign is now lit up, and it actually flashes in game and flickers. A couple of sparks come off the flickering light. You've got a bit of a neon kind of hum to it when you go near it. It really helps bring this scene to life and makes it visually distinct from the rest of the map. Now this next area here got a visual pass and a fairly significant gameplay change as well. I removed the manable sentry gun from this area as it was way too strong, and kind of all the players that I saw play the map always gravitated to this area, which was a real shame, so I actually deleted it for that reason. So let's go back and look at the old version of this area. So as you can see here, this area is extremely dark in the old version of the map. Now keep in mind that in Left 4 Dead 2 you've always got your flashlight out, so this area was never really this hard to see in the actual game, but still from an art perspective it looks incredibly dull and dark. You've got the bright hotspot in the distance, which is great for leading players into that area to pick up supplies, but for the most part you really don't want the foreground to be this dull. And so as we go into the 6.0 version here, you can see this is the same angle, but you've now got a spotlight up above the doorway which casts a nice light down into this corridor, and again you've got some interesting shadows coming off the various new bits of geometric detail I've added here. There's also a spotlight aimed up at the tree in the background, which gives it a nice kind of orangey yellow glow that just kind of adds a little bit more interesting colour to the scene without getting in the way of any gameplay or kind of distracting players. There's also some more geometry actually in the lane. This actually helps to break up a lot of long sight lines in the map. I added these in a few different places just to give the zombies a little bit more cover and kind of give players something to hide behind as well. I think it really helps add to the gameplay depth because there's more stuff to hide behind and move around. So with the removal of the sentry gun and these new kind of visibility blockers added to the lane, this area isn't as strong as it was before. You can see here I've opened up a little bit of the wall as well, so you can see into areas that you couldn't before. Again, it just helps increase the immersive feel of the map. Some of the explorable areas, as you're seeing here, have been polished up a little bit. This area was literally just a giant cube carved into this brush before. Now there's some pillars in there, some light fittings, various kind of rubble and detail props added all over the place. This area got a fairly significant rework, so I can show you that right now. So in the old version of the map that you're seeing here, again, the lighting is fairly dull here. There's not a lot of direct lighting going on here. It's all kind of ambient light, which there isn't really a lot of as the map is set at night. There's also not a lot of geometric detail, as you can see here. In the rework, which we'll swap to right now, there's more detail added to all the buildings in the scene, so things like the AC unit on the roof of the building in the background really helps, again, break the silhouette of kind of just a flat brush. In the foreground, you've got another one of these visibility breaking barricades. Again, this has helped to break up line of sight on this lane. There's a lot of zombie bodies around the bottom of it, which is more of a storytelling thing. Again, I try to tell a lot of story with this map just through the visuals, so things like whenever I put these barricades around the place, I always try to place like zombie bodies around them, or perhaps dead bodies with like ammo strewn on the floor. So there's obviously been a firefight here at some point with this barricade has been broken down or bypassed somehow. There's also a lot of visual detail added to the alley that you can see in the shot here. It doesn't really come out too well in the screenshot, but there's a lot more things like graffiti on the walls, various props attached to the walls in different places that weren't there before. It looks a lot better in game, and you've got the flashlight out and you can actually see it all. If you haven't noticed yet, I recorded all this stuff with the flashlight off, so probably not the best idea, but hey, we'll just go with it. Another kind of funny story of this is the telephone wires up above the street here. I never actually finished them in the original version of the map. They just kind of stopped at a telephone pole that was still inside the map boundary. Really, really obvious to see. So I actually finished all the cabling. It goes well outside the map boundaries now, so you can't actually see where it ends. I can't believe I missed that in the original. I felt really dumb doing that. So here's another very serious gameplay addition. I wanted to add another way out of this kind of pocket here. It was kind of a bit of a death trap for players really when you come down here. So I've added this ladder here that players can climb up. And as you can see, there's a lot more detail and lighting in this area. Let's have a look at the old version. So again here you can see the lighting is extremely dark. There's a hotspot right next to where the health spawns, which is always a good thing. Again, players are drawn towards these hotspots in the map, so it's very important for them to be there. So I wanted to add new lighting without removing these hotspots. So what I decided to do, and you've kind of already seen this in the previous part of the video, is added floodlights to the bottom of the trees that go upwards, so that they don't really interfere with the hotspots in the map, but they still add a lot of visual and lighting detail to the area. So as you can see here, the area's it's a lot easier to see. I've added a lot more things like scrubs and bushes and rocks, kind of, again, breaking up silhouettes, adding detail. And you've got these floodlights lighting up the trees, which looks fantastic. Adds a nice visual hotspot to the map without getting in the way of the players. So I really, really like that. There's more trees and things in this area as well. Again, trees are great at breaking up the kind of brush detail that is inherent in all Source games, really. So this next area that we're coming up on now also had a fairly significant visual upgrade, both in terms of lighting and geometry. Got a couple of side-by-side shots here for you to have a look at. So this is the old version of the map, and this is taken from kind of a bird's eye, almost isometric angle, I guess, and you can tell it looks very, very dull. It's very, very easy to spot the brushwork construction here. There's really not a lot of detail, the lighting's kind of dull. Most of it's coming from these street lamps here. And as we go into version 6.0 here, you can tell there's a lot more detail added to the road. There's a lot more things like mud embankments. There's a little bit of water in there as well, which has an interesting gameplay implication as well, as players do move slower in water. So it's kind of an extra hazard here to avoid. All the traffic lights and various railings and other props are all new as well. And as you can tell, the lighting's a little bit brighter. Increase the brightness on all the street lamps across the entire map, really, just to give them more of a kind of hotspot feel. And you can see off in the distance there's a slight green light off by the tunnel in the very back of the shot. Let's go and have a closer look at that now, because that's another area that was really, really dull in the old map. So as you can see, there's no lighting in this corner of the map in the old version. It's very, very hard to see any real detail at all. The buildings in the distance look very, very blocky as well. In fact, the tree and kind of the top part of the shot is the only real thing that looks like it has any real detail whatsoever. So as we go into the new version, I'm sure you can see the difference is pretty staggering. So it's just a fairly simple bit of tweaking here. Adding another neon lamp on the wall here really helps kind of bring this corner to life a little. And just lots more props off in the distance. Again, look at the building in the background. It's got a lot more geometric detail to it now. The silhouette is much more broken up. You've got the fences around the top as well. And as I was mentioning earlier, you've got the telegraph poles carrying the phone lines all the way out the back of the map, which again gives a great feeling of depth, which is just completely lacking before. So this poster is just another bit of in-map storytelling. So this tunnel obviously goes to the airport or somewhere close to the airport, and it's been boarded up because the airport has been quarantined by Cedar. Another interesting little aside, this area I'm in right now is added in the new version of the map. It was just a completely flat wall before, you couldn't get underneath. Just wanted to add, again, just more spaces for infected and players to hide in. This area is fairly interesting. The Jeep has always been here, but the lighting here has been slightly tweaked to make it look slightly better. There were some lighting artifacts and incorrect geometry lighting, which has been fixed. And I really like the use of the headlight beams as a kind of soft visibility blocker. You don't really have to use solid walls for visibility blocking. Just the headlight beams going into the middle of the road. You can't really see through them, but you can walk through them, you can shoot through them. So it's really another interesting way to kind of break line of sight without putting a physical wall in between you and the enemy, which I think is really cool. So this apartments area of the map is probably one of the weakest areas in terms of visuals. In this old version of the map here, you can tell it's very, very boxy. This is one of the first areas I made in the map actually, which is probably why it's so inherently boxy. It's very, very hard to fix because all the rooms would have to change sizes and I have to rearrange everything. Perhaps another update I'll go back and do that. But you can also see here in the old version of the map, there's a lot of brick texturing that's not really broken up by anything. It looks very, very unnatural. Even like the underside of the walkthrough here has got brick up above, which I really didn't like the look of. And as you can see, the kind of knobbly bricks on the sides of the buildings to help break up silhouette aren't really lit correctly. So in the new version, you can see here, I've added plaster instead of brick on the underside of the building, which improves the visuals so much for such a simple change. I've changed the brick texture to a much more interesting bump map version. I was obviously using the wrong texture before. This one looks so much better in game. And generally it's just a lot more props around the map. But it still looks very, very boxy. And again, this is an area that's going to have to get a full rework, I think. There's no amount of sprucing up that's going to change the boxy nature of it. So there's a little bit of a fun addition on the wall here. This is a poster for Luminesca, a game by Matt Glanville. Matt Glanville is a name you may be familiar with if you're interested in Half-Life 2 custom levels. He released a map called Union for Half-Life 2 Episode 2, which had you following a Vortigern ally around a map, killing enemies with them, solving puzzles with them. It was a really, really cool map. I loved it to bits. So this back side of the apartments here got a fairly major visual upgrade as well. As you can see here in the old version, very, very dull. I kind of like the lighting coming from the roof above, but the wall in the lower part of the shot just looks completely dull. In fact, there's no detail there at all, not even any decals or anything. So as you can see here, I've added a lot of more models, decals, some more lighting to the bottom. Again, the texture change on the bricks really helps bring this out as well. And there's some supports holding up the balcony as well, so this area looks so much better as a result. Another grim death here in the corridor. And again, you've got a health pickup here, so there's a hotspot of light which draws players to it. Now, I've talked about this in previous analysis videos for this map, but it really is a very free-form survival map, whereas a lot of survival maps have typically one area which players survive in. This is more like a deathmatch map where players are constantly moving around, finding new supplies, and kind of holding out in these lots of mini holdout areas strewn throughout the entire level, which is why kind of leading players around with strong lighting is so important. So let's leave the apartments for now, as the interiors are largely exactly the same. There's a couple of lighting tweaks here and there, but nothing serious. Let's have a look at this area, because this area again is another one that received a fairly major visual upgrade. So in the previous version here, you can see the curbs are very, very boxy. Again, these are just kind of brushes right now. There's no real detail added there. And the lighting is not bad in this area. Again, you've got lots of hotspots dragging the player's eyes around. It's fairly well lit. The distance is a little bit dodgy though. There's not really much detail going on there, which I didn't like. So as we head into the new version, look at them curbs. So you can see they're much more rounded now. The lighting feels much more natural on them. There's things like drain pipes embedded in them now, so it looks much, much better. The lighting is more defined, especially in the foreground. You've got the kind of very, very harsh shadows on the wall. And in the background, the actual addition of the moon to the skybox actually really helps make the background pop out a lot more. Which I think it looks so much better with just a simple addition of a moon in the skybox. I'm really happy with how this area turned out. So as we come forwards here, we're going to take a step inside and have a look at the interiors here. This area's had a little bit of work to it. The lighting's slightly better. There's some more detail in this room, things like the brick pillars behind these bookends here. Really helps make this area look a bit better. It's just kind of lots of props strewn around the place before. Didn't have really much of a good flow to it. And this area's had a fairly significant addition. I really wanted to add a chainsaw to the map, and this area was just completely devoid of anything before. So again, it's another great chance to tell some story with the actual map. So there's obviously someone gone down in a blaze of glory here with the chainsaw, and it's left a rather gruesome mess that players find upon entering the map. I really, really like that room now. It was one of the most boring rooms before, and that's one of my favourites. There's a little recess in the wall here with another neon light in it. That's completely new as well. Again, this is just another area where I just wanted to add more cover for the player and the zombies. More kind of in and out areas. That was a completely flat wall going on for ages before. It was a bit dull. And the other major addition, as we come down this tunnel here, is the addition of the subway station underneath the in the indent here. This was literally just a block cut out of the wall before. There was nothing really there. I'll show you right now. So yeah, I heard you like cubes, and this is just one long cube that's been carved out of the brush here. There's a little bit of water in it, which is that kind of highlighted area on the ground that you're seeing, but there's literally nothing in there. It was a really, really bad area of the map that I really wanted to do something cool with, and the subway station was great for a couple of reasons. It gave me a chance to add some more coloured lighting to this area, like the green subway signs and red subway signs, and you get some great kind of additions and props, like things like seating and vending machines and all that kind of stuff that you'd find in a subway station. So it gave me a lot of ideas of how to detail up this area. So in version 6 here, you can tell there's a lot more detail to this area now. You've got all the light bulbs up above, some of which are flickering, some of which are broken. You've got the red subway signs, which add some much needed colour to the scene. And if you look closely in the distance, you've got the green subway exit sign, which does glow green slightly and makes the environment around it glow a slight green, which I really, really like. There's also, it's not in the screenshot, but there's an area you can go around the back which has a lot of seating and vending machines. And pro tip, there is a health pack hidden back there for survival games. It's quite a dangerous area to be in though. Things like chargers and spitters will really mess you up if you stay in there too long. But yeah, that was a much needed visual upgrade for this area. And again, the subway kind of adds a little bit more story. So there's a subway station here, it's been barricaded off by the military. Again, there's a whole load of dead bodies outside it where people have obviously tried to get down into the subway and been shot dead, or, you know, perhaps it's just zombies trying to get down there and they've been shot dead. And as we skip by the Routine poster, Routine is another game I wanted to promote in this map because I'm looking forward to it so much. It's by a company called Luna Software, which is an independent developer of 3. And it's kind of a space survival horror roguelike, I think. Either way, I'm really looking forward to that game. So, thought I'd put a poster of it in the map. So that is Cornered 6.0 in a nutshell. I hope you enjoyed this brief analysis of the changes to version 6.0. Let me know what you thought of the video. I always want to improve these analysis type videos. I need to do more of them. The trouble is that I need to make maps in order to analyse them. That's the tricky part, and the part I'm having trouble with right now is actually finishing a level. So hopefully I'll do better at that in the future. Anyway, I'll see you next time.